probably an exaggeration to say a video game changed my life, but let me set the scene. It was late 1997, and I was a broke college student who wasn't into video games anymore. I mean, sure, the new PlayStation and Nintendo 64 consoles looked interesting, but whatever. Then a friend acquired both an N64 and a copy of WCW vs. nWo World Tour. So I went to his dorm room, played it for a bit, and left knowing I had to own this game. And in fact, I spent both my New Year's Eve and New Year's Day working a horrible shift at Blockbuster Video to scrape up the cash. And it was all worth it, even though I never played any games for my N64 other than wrestling titles. Not only is this my favorite wrestling video game series ever, it's my favorite game series, period. You've probably noticed we covered a lot of WWF games, but only a few WCW ones, because there were only 3 WCW games through the 16-bit era. World Championship Wrestling for the NES, Super Brawl for the Super Nintendo, and Main Event for the Game Boy. But for every game WCW put out, the WWF put out at least 7, probably more depending on what you count. But in 1997, WCW found itself atop the wrestling world, thanks to the nWo angle, its live Monday Nitro show, and an influx of old stars and high-flying wrestlers. So it's only apt that they released a game that blew away anything the WWF had ever put out. We'll get to the engine in a second, but I want to talk about the jump to a new console. We've covered new platforms before, going from the Nintendo to Super Nintendo, but the only real change there was sharper graphics and better sound. With the jump to the Nintendo 64, the game was now in 3D. Wrestlers couldn't just face right or left, they could move in any direction. In so many of the games we covered, you could only jump off the top 2 turnbuckles on the screen. But here you could jump off any of the 4 or run in any direction. If you saw something done in a match on TV, you could do it in the game. Now let's get to that engine. The grappling system works like this. You're near the opponent, you tap A to do a quick grapple. If you get it, you can tap a variety of combinations to pull off simple moves like slams and snapmares. However, if you hold down A, you do a slower grapple, but if it connects, you're allowed to do stronger moves. However, you have to wear your opponent down with weaker moves first, or else your strong grapples tend to get reversed. So matches actually build in a logical manner. The same goes for strikes. Tap B for quick strike, hold it down for a stronger one. However, stronger grapples and strikes, because they're slower, can be reversed more easily. And yes, you can block attacks and attempted grapples in the game. Now defense plays as big a part as offense. And remember how I said if you saw something in a match on TV, you can replicate it in the game? There are so many ways to attack your opponent in this game. Besides grappling and striking, you can come off the top rope to attack an opponent either standing or laying on the mat. You can slap on submissions on the ground or perform ground attacks. You can send someone into the turnbuckle and do a corner grapple or running attack. You can even taunt by moving the joystick. If your opponent is on the floor and you have a high-flying wrestler, you can do a running dive to the floor, a standing dive near the ropes, a dive off the apron, a running dive off the apron, or jumping off the turnbuckles to the floor. And even though the Nintendo 64 controllers had about 50 buttons, gameplay becomes second nature in no time. And to list all the moves in the game would take about an hour. Basically any submission, strike, dive, or grapple is accounted for. I mean, it's one thing to have a powerbomb in the game. It's another to feature a normal powerbomb, a pinning powerbomb, a sit-out powerbomb, running powerbomb, a top rope powerbomb, tiger driver, a gut wrench powerbomb, and probably about a half dozen more. You may notice a little meter marked Spirit on the bottom of the screen. If you string together some offensive taunts, maybe a few reversals, your Spirit meter will turn orange and flash special. At this point, you're basically invincible for a short time. If you have strong grapple, you can hit your special move, most often your finisher. It adds another layer of strategy where you have to either try and get a strong grapple when you have your special meter flashing, or if the other guy has a special, you stay the hell away till it runs out. Playable wrestlers are grouped into blocks of 4. There's the nWo featuring Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Syxx, Scott Norton, and Buff Bagwell. Eric Bischoff is included too, and he sucks as a character, but is pretty effective as a punching bag. Fake Sting is included too, Lord knows why. I think the programmers just got a little lazy and wanted to pad the wrestler count. There's also a WCW section with people you'd expect like Lex Luger, Sting, The Giant, and the Steiner Brothers. But they also have Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio, Steven Regal, and my favorite character in the game, Ultimo Dragon. I was so used to WWF games with 10 characters, this just blew my mind. You also have the option of 4 different outfits for your wrestler. It's not just different colors, you can have different gimmicks too. For example, you can be Hollywood Hogan, or classic red and yellow Hulkster. You have the choice between Crow Sting or Surfer Sting, and they put Made in the USA Lex Luger in the game, which I didn't think was legal, but I guess you can't copyright the American flag. If you're wondering where the World Tour aspect comes in, the other two sections of the game are dedicated to wrestlers from Japan. I'm talking about big Japanese companies like New Japan, who WCW actually had a working agreement with. No, instead we have the Dead or Alive organization, featuring wrestlers from IWA Japan, War, and FMW. The wrestlers resemble their real-life counterparts and have the same moves, but were given goofy names like Sumo Joe and Powder Keg. And then there was the Independent Union, which featured wrestlers from Michinoku Pro, including Taka Michinoku, who was about to win the WWF Light Heavyweight title when the game came out. Strangely enough, they made Dick Togo and Mince Teo share a spot as Paco Loco. Togo was the first two costume slots, Teo was the last two. I wouldn't have known unless someone had pointed it out online. It's weird in retrospect as an American consumer that half the game is Japanese wrestlers about 95% of the audience wasn't familiar with. But I didn't care, because 20 WCW wrestlers was a huge roster at the time. You can also unlock a bunch of guys through the League Challenge, where you beat everyone in a block, which opens up Diamond Dallas Page, Randy Savage, Glacier, and Wrath. Once you unlock those four, you can unlock Manami Toyota, and a Muhammad Ali stand-in called Joe Bruiser. Again, no idea why. Some other fun things worth mentioning. You can bust your opponent open and give them the dreaded Crimson Mask. When fighting outside the ring, you can reach into the crowd for weapons. Sometimes you come up empty-handed and your opponent just gives a funny shrug. There are double team moves in the game, executed when both wrestlers grapple another at the same time. You can also put your opponent on your shoulders for a doomsday device. And lastly, the crazy bumps everyone takes. I watched a lot of Nitro, and I'm pretty sure Kevin Nash never landed on his head taking a clothesline. Now, I actually have a decent amount of nitpicks. First, this game doesn't really feel like a WCW game. There are no Nitro or pay-per-view sets and no theme music, and no entrances, period. Half the guys aren't even in the company. Graphically, everything looks fine, but the wrestlers come off looking like mannequins. Why does Ric Flair look so lumpy?
I can't help that I'm custom made. I can't help, but I'll tell you this. I can't help that I look good.
There's not much in the way of vocal effects, other than a phantom voice counting along for pinfalls. And the wrestlers themselves all make these really weird grunting noises. Finishers aren't handled all that well in the game. Sure, the Giant has a chokeslam, but it's done a Kira Taue style. The Diamond Cutter lacks all the snap of the move in real life. Randy Savage does an elbow off the top, but it's the same weird back elbow everyone does by default. And Scott Hall does a Niagara driver instead of the Razor's Edge, but hey, ungrateful wrestling fan, there's a friggin' Niagara driver in the game. But Scott Steiner does a screwdriver, so all is mostly forgiven. There's also not a lot to do in the game. The league challenges are fine to unlock players, but there's not much point after that. There's also a WCW nWo 5-on-5 challenge, which I never played, along with traditional and round-robin tournaments. Oddly, when you win a tournament, you get a trophy. There are no titles in the game. So I mainly stuck to exhibition matches, which featured Battle Royals, which were a blast to play with 4 players, and a tag team elimination match, which sadly never made it to any other games. There's no creator wrestler edit feature, but since I never experienced them in a game, I can't say I missed them. Did I really care about any of this? Not particularly. I was so happy to have a 3D game with great graphics and amazing gameplay. I think it totally holds up today. Some modern gamers might find it a little on the slow side, but they have bad opinions. THQ made better wrestling games, and they even made a better WCW game. But this one laid the groundwork, and I feel you should own all the games in the series to see how things progressed. We'll be back next time to get some revenge. Before we go, Tom and I want to extend a hearty thank you to everyone who's ever viewed a video or made a tweet or posted a link somewhere. There's a whole lot of stuff to see on the internet, and we're proud of the little niche we've carved out. Here's to 25 more. Till then, thanks for watching, and remember, a winner is you.